What's going on, guys? Alpha the Wizard back at it with another video. Today we are still in Dark Arm Return format in the meta history of Yu-Gi-Oh! And in the midst of Dark Arm Return format, the deck was just tier 0. There were so many FTKs revolving around the Destiny Hero and the Dark Engine that emerged from this format, and then there was a random heavy samurai or 6 samurai deck that won 1 SJC, only for the rest of the format to just get dominated by Dark Arm Return decks. However, this deck did receive an E-ban in May of 2008, banning Dimension Fusion and putting Return from the different dimension to 1, very hindering the deck, and then Gladiator Beast became the best deck. However, right before that time came, Gladiator Beast showed up. Paul Leventon, who was piloting this deck, showed up in the middle, towards the end actually, of Dark Arm Return format and won a Shonen Jump with Gladiator Beast before Dark Arm Return got nerfed. And without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and dive into his list and show you the deck that he played in the middle of Dark Arm Return. And honestly, this deck is quite fun. However, this is Gladiator Beast before Gladiator Beast Gazaris was released. But you will see exactly why this deck was able to contend. So to start off with the Gladiator Beast monsters, we have 2 copies of Laquari. Now, Laquari is the boss Gladiator Beast of the deck, getting all the way up to 2100, even being able to crash with like maybe a Cyber Dragon, which that card wasn't really played this format, but the principle of the matter is it's a level 4 that gets pumped up pretty big. But this was also good against Dark Arm Return decks because they might just have like a Stratos on turn 1 or just maybe a set monster, and then Laquari just does damage. And if you do start with Laquari and they have a set, and let's say it's like a Spirit Reaper or a Spy or something, he also opted to play 2 copies of Murmillo. Now, Murmillo is good because you're able to just take care of problem cards. This deck was a different kind of deck from what the Yu-Gi-Oh community was used to in this era, because now this deck had an entire toolbox of monsters that were removal in the deck. So Murmillo could simply just summon and take care of a problem. And then also we had 2 Gladiator Beast Bestiari, which could take care of spell and traps. So not only was stun decks just getting phased out, because now we have Bestiari that can just pop the back rows, and then we have Murmillo that can just pop any big defenders. But, you know, we also have like a whole slew of other Gladiator Beast monsters, such as the Hippo guy, Palomus. I've never been able to say his name, so I just call him the Hippo. But they did opt to play 3 copies at this time, which, looking back, a lot of people would probably say this is incorrect. However, you want to be able to see this card, set this card, have your opponent attack into it, not knowing what you're playing game 1, and then now your Glad engine is already started, summoning a Murmillo to pop the monster they just attacked with, or whatever the case may be. Hippo is really good only because this is Dark Arm Return format. If it was more Gladiator Beast oriented, then we probably would only play 1 of these. But then we also have a singular copy of Darius. Darius was really good. There's justification where you could play 2. However, it's not really needed because all the other Glads, you probably will be summoning more. Plus, there's no Gazaris. And then we do have a singular copy of Secutor. Secutor is really good in this deck also. This is the weakest Gladiator Beast of them all. However, Secutor, there's a lot of simplified game states that you could end up in where this card is just really powerful. Especially if Dark Arm Return is just simply trying to get set up and you have traps to protect you or remove like monsters from the field such as Eternal Tribute, then Secutor just gets in and does a lot of damage. So, in addition to those, it wouldn't be Gladiator Beast without Test Tiger. Now, Test Tiger was a new addition to Yu-Gi-Oh! At this time, which also gave Gladiator Beast just like a huge creep in power, because Test Tiger just allowed you to just free special this, tribute it, and return a Gladiator Beast you control to the deck, and it could just get its effect the same turn without having to attack. And then you could attack and tag it into something else. So this allowed for so much versatility. But then also just a singular copy of Rescue Cat. Some people would probably argue you could play more. However, this deck wasn't necessarily the combo Glad variation that a lot of people may remember from like Edison or even Teledad. No, Rescue Cat is very minimal in this deck because we're trying to control the game at a slower pace and just be able to deal with our opponent's cards. So Rescue Cat isn't exactly what we need. However, just simply being able to have cards like Gladiator Beast Laquari in the deck, we're able to deal with so many problematic cards already, because there's really not that many cards that like the Glads can't naturally out. Laquari can beat over things, Murmillo can pop things, Hippo is 2400 defense. So yeah, so much versatility. But then for the other monsters that are not Gladiator Beast, Paul Leviton opted to play a copy of Sangan because it tutors out, Rescue Cat or Test Tiger. And then he also opted to play a single copy of Spirit Reaper. Now, you may be wondering why I played Spirit Reaper, because there's not a lot of monster removal in Dark Arm Return format other than Dark Arm Dragon. So if they don't have that and they're lacking darks in their graveyard, there's no real efficient way for them to deal with Spirit Reaper unless they have something like Brain Control or something that can just generally target it. However, it's very common that Reaper could just end up on the field for multiple turns while you're trying to still get set up. So this card is very good this format in Glads. And then he also opted to play the tech card, one copy of Grand Mole. You might be wondering why he plays Grand Mole. Okay, so this is very easy. Grand Mole can out so many cards in Dark Arm Return because simply just by Grand Mole battling, it's going to bounce both cards. So even if, they're trying to get set up and they might have like a Mystic Tomato or something, Grand Mole is really good against that. Also, this card is really, really, really good in the Gladiator Beast Mirror match too, because you can just out one of their Glads, and if you have another one on the field, now you're just cruising. And then a singular copy of Morphing Jar. This is very much a control deck, so it's very common for you to have a lot of back row. So being able to just set 3 in a Morphing Jar is very powerful, because now you're going to have battle traps that combat your opponent, but you're also going to replenish your hand with maybe more Glads and more defensive cards. So yeah, that's really it for the monsters. Now for the spells are very far and few between. Didn't really play a lot of them. He played a singular copy of Proving Ground. It's just a Rhoda for a Glad. And then Monster Reborn, Premature Burial, mainly because both of these cards were legal this format, which is why Dark Arm Return was so good, because having Monster Reborn and Premature Burial in the same format as this commander is almost unfair. And then we have a singular copy of Mystical Space Typhoon and Heavy Storm. We have to deal with problematic cards like Return from the Different Dimension. There's a whole slew of cards that, we definitely need Heavy for. There's justification for not playing Heavy since we play so many back row ourselves. However, if you know Glads, you don't have to commit them all at once, making Heavy Storm even better in the deck. And then he also opted to play a copy of Gold Sarcophagus. Now, me back in the day used to think that people only played this as a flex because this was a prize card. However, this card actually has good utility, because in 2 standby phases, you're going to get this card like the card you banish back, right? Seems like a really long time. But with this being a control deck, you're able to banish maybe a Monster Reborn, a Brain Control, or even a Heavy Storm, and then just keep controlling the game after that point, no matter how far they make it. But then he also opted to play a singular copy of Soul Taker and a copy of Smashing Ground. You may be wondering, why not 2 Smashing Ground? Well, Soul Taker has different applications. Smashing Ground, you can't really pick the monster unless they have the same defense, being the highest. However, Soul Taker, yeah, while you may be giving them 1,000 life points, you can pick which monster to destroy, which can matter if you're trying to out maybe a Jinzo who doesn't have very high defense that Smashing Ground might not be able to take care of. Soul Taker can also help with that. So I kind of like what he did with the versatility of 1 Smashing Ground and 1 Soul Taker. And then a singular copy of Swords of Revealing Light, because this deck is trying to get set up because it is a control deck. So not very many spell cards. However, this is the bread and butter, and that is the trap cards. He opted to play 3 copies of Solemn Judgment, and it gets a little more degenerate because since this is Dark Armor turn format, he was fully prepared for this YCS because he made 3 Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. If you flip this card against Dark Armor turn, you're just going to win. Because if they don't have an out to this card immediately, your Gladiator Beast cards are just going to start getting in and winning you the game. And there's not really a fast way they can come back under Shadow Mirror. And then a singular copy of Terminal Tribute, a singular copy of Mirror Force. These were just still power cards at this time, and they're both at 1, so we might as well play them. He did opt to play a singular copy of Ojama Trio. You might be wondering why Ojama Trio? Well, think about it. This is a control deck, and he is putting Dark Armor turn players under Shadow Mirror, and then flipping Ojama Trio to give them tokens maybe, just for the Glads to run into the tokens, deal damage to the opponent, and then shuffle through your Glad monsters. So yeah, Trio was a very interesting addition. And then for more degeneracy for this deck, he also opted to play a singular copy of Mind Crush, Trap Dust Shoot, and Crush Card Virus. Since we do play Sangan and Reaper, we have so many cards that we can resolve with Crush Card Virus and, make it more realistic to get this card off in a deck that doesn't really play that many darks. But Mind Crush in the main deck was kind of big brain, to be honest, because if you think about it, if you're going first and you have Mind Crush and you don't even see Dust Shoot or Crush Card, most of the time, if your opponent's on Dark Armor turn, they're going to activate Reinforcements of the Army to search Stratos, or they're going to go Stratos to search, any card to maybe try to use a Destiny draw. Yeah, well, if they Rhoda for Stratos, you just flip Mind Crush, and you're ripping the Stratos. And that is very powerful, because now their engine is just inherently slowed down. But yeah, so this deck is very good, and there's a good reason why he won. And then you should play 3 of these, but this is the only Gladiator Beast fusion that was out at the time, and it's Heraclinos. However, with this being a control deck, it is pretty easy to get out Heraclinos. But I will say, you don't really need to use this as a win con. It's just more of a late game card that might come up after you've controlled the game and the tempo, and your opponent might have some hope, and then you just drop this and it's just game. And Laquari says hello. But yeah, so that's really the end of this profile. Paul Leventon won this SJC with Glads, and then not even 2 weeks later, Dark Armor Return got the E-ban of Dimension Fusion and Return from the Different Dimension to 1. But yes, I wanted to thank you all for watching this profile. I really hope you enjoyed this content, and make sure to subscribe for more content, and stay tuned for the meta history of Yu-Gi-Oh!